All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual set to compete at BFL 77, and that goes down on June 9th, defending his middleweight championship in the co-main event. We have Revel taking on Bruno Santos, and great having Jared back on the show. How's your day going there, Jared?
It's going good, man. It's going good. Just drinking lots of water and, staying with it, right?
Yeah, for sure, and obviously a lot to talk about with this fight, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't at least, briefly touch on the last one. Like, that seemed like an important one to you, just getting that, main event victory and beating someone like Jesse Taylor, who obviously had a, pretty big profile going into that one, and getting your, ninth, first round finish and everything like that. What were the main takeaways from that one there for you?
Yeah, I think it was just, execution, right? Like, we executed kind of the game plan. That was, we figured around 4 minutes that would be when, either we'd get the finish or, right, the pace would slow down for him, right? So just execution was the main point, right? And getting that, and, with my coaches, my team, just putting that all together.
Yeah, that must have been satisfying, because when we were talking, you were saying getting the finish was an aim of yours, and I mean, your track record really speaks to that, but it must be satisfying to see like a specifically mapped out game plan kind of, fall into place. But that being said, were there any things Jesse Taylor brought to the cage that existed outside of those preconceived notions, I guess?
He actually, was throwing more, ground and pound than in his most previous fights. Like, he hadn't been throwing as many. Obviously, he used to have good ground and pound when he first kind of came in on the scene, but he kind of went more jiu-jitsu in the last little bit, right? But he was throwing some elbows, even clipped me with one, right? Cut me a little bit. So that was probably the only difference in that.
Yeah, it also seemed in line with just a lot of the conversations we've had. Like, it seems like the aims you have are really to just test yourself against the highest opposition possible, and just fighting someone who previously was like an Ultimate Fighter veteran and has fought guys like Dennis Kang and Luke Rockhold. I would think that it would, be satisfied on that kind of end as well, just to the point I was making, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, man. It definitely was, it's a satisfying victory for sure. Just to be able to test yourself against guys like that.
Yeah, and it seems like it's parlayed itself into a big one here, just in terms of, even beyond this fight, which in and of itself is a great fight, obviously, but just multiple championship fights being on this card, getting back on UFC Fight Pass again, and it seems like it's in, a certain proximity to like the big UFC card that's coming through on Saturday, and I've been seeing rumblings of certain, people like that in the UFC kind of, being there for this one. So it seems like there's a lot, going into this one, a lot of boxes being checked off, as it were.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a showcase. Lots of eyes on the event. So it's primed for for a showcase and for a big night, and to put on a show.
Yeah, absolutely. And what were the, I guess, initial thoughts when this bout offer kind of came your way? Because you're fighting a strong opponent, obviously, and has great experience to their credit previously with PFL and ACA and some other reputable leagues of that sort, UFC as well. Like, what were your thoughts when this bout offer initially came your way?
It's a tough fight for sure, but at the end of the day, that's like what we were talking about. That's kind of exactly what I'm looking for, and to be able to get a finish over a guy like this is just gonna, cement that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And is it a similar dynamic to last time? And as far as, you just mentioned there the desire to secure the finish, but also, you were talking about having a thoroughly mapped out game plan for the last opponent. Like, obviously not getting you to divulge the game plan for this one, but is it that confluence of the two things?
I think definitely, to execute the game plan, right? But ideally, like, the game plan always has a finish in it, right? So that's, going for that, right? That's the goal for sure. And, I think execution is just like where I've got to. It's, you put all the work in, right? And, make sure you implement, you don't hesitate, right? You just take full advantage of the moment.
Yeah, and who have you been, I guess, mostly working with ahead of this particular fight? Like, are you working with people who, I guess, have maybe similar, body types or stylistic attributes to Bruno Santos? Like, who would you say you're predominantly getting in work with in this camp?
Like we, a lot of the work goes to, like, I've been training a lot with the Blur camp, right? Like that's, that's what I got. Like those guys, right? We're all bigger boys, right? And it gives me the weight look, right? And then the Hunter Lee, the same guy that I've been training with, and guy that needs a fight for sure, right? He's one to know as a pro, but he's a monster, and that's why nobody's taking the fight with him, right? But he's been probably my most steadily training partner throughout this camp.
Yeah, it seems like a good combination of things, with like Buller being like the more, I guess, like established kind of like bigger body that we're talking about, and then you got like the young, hungry, guy on the rise. So probably like mentality wise, it's like a good mixture to kind of have there.
100%, man, 100%.
And probably a good vibe too with like Arjan getting ready to return to the one circle and take on, Anatoly Malaikin. So there's probably a good vibe. I mean, I imagine there's a good vibe at all times in the gym anyway, as you're kind of readying for these fights, but
brings it together, right? And, everybody's, gearing up, everybody's amped up for, some big moments, right? And to put on shows. So everybody's, in that championship mindset, right?
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I mean, definitely some killers from out of there, as we're kind of talking about there, and obviously not overlooking this fight per se, but I did mention the dynamics of it being in close proximity to the UFC event and stuff like that. Do you have any plans to be going to that event, or are you more focusing on kind of decompressing and doing non-MMA related stuff after the fight and all?
No, it all, like, one of my favorite guys, Eric Anders, he's fighting the next night, right? So that is definitely somebody I want to support and be around for that, right? So.
Oh, cool. Is that someone you've gotten in like a lot of training with in the past, or like where does that camaraderie kind of come from? Is it just appreciation for his fighting style, or like is it a more like
I went out to Fight Ready is the gym that he trains out of in Arizona, and I went there for a couple of his camps for his fights, right? So, put a lot of work in with him. He's obviously helped me get a lot better in the same spit, right? So it's you just invest in that guy as a fighter, and love seeing him do well, right?
Yeah, I would think that would be a great space too. Like, yeah, we kind of had talked about that in a previous interview. It kind of slipped my mind a little bit, but definitely a great space. I was going to say, have you been cross-training as much as of late? Like, it seems like you've mostly been working with the Buller camp, like at least the last couple times we've been talking.
Yeah, for the last two camps, I've kind of just been back home here. I haven't really traveled as much, right? But, you still got, connections out there. And I think he kind of reached out about maybe going out for this camp. And, I was kind of told him, I think I'm going to have a fight, the night before, right? So it was like, just kind of in that... I was in the limbo because I had an opponent originally, and then it fell through, and then I got another opponent, right? So I stuck around home here.
I guess one of the obvious questions is he going to be coming to your fight? Like, is he stopping by the BFL card, or not so much, maybe?
I'm not putting that on the guy. He's got to fight. Although he loves fights, so who knows at that point, right? I'll. If that's something he's down for, but he's got to fight. He's going to be doing weigh-ins, right? And then, probably going to want to, relax and chill. I don't put anything like that on him, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that's totally fair. I get where you're coming from. Who's going to be representing at that event though? Is Pistol Pete coming out for this one, or what's going on with that?
Pistol Pete loves to watch from the television, so he won't. He doesn't like the live noise at a fight event, which is weird because he loves hockey games and all that. But I think it's just it's a lot, right? He's a little bit of emotional sometimes when he watches me fight too, right? So he's got to have his spot, right? But hopefully the whole hometown crew, family, friends, right, and all the people that support, right? That's always the big key.
Yeah, I was gonna say he does get pretty rowdy, a very enthusiastic fan. It seems like for what you do out there.
Oh, 100%, man.
Yeah, I'd love to see that for sure. And I don't know if this has happened already or if it's still like a bit in the future, but it looked like you were getting like a golf tournament going in June and stuff like that, like Smash the Stigma, I believe was like, yeah.
So June 18th, so the following Sunday, right? So Father's Day, so it's a huge event we always like to put on, for autism, right? And we're aligned with the Canucks Autism Network, and definitely, it's a great cause. It's near and dear to our hearts, right? So
that's awesome. How long have you been kind of helping organize that there?
So we originally, I want to say, we've had a couple years in between some of them just because of COVID and different things. So we started with a spike ball tournament. That's how we started it one summer. And then we kind of went on to a golf tournament, the past summer. And then now we're back at the golf. It just seems like the easiest form, right, for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's always like a good sort of thing too. I mean, obviously in a, predominant way, it's a great cause, but good way to, get people out. I feel like people, really enjoy ripping the golf during summer. So, cool that that's an event that's, yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, I guess just one of the last fight related things I kind of wanted to touch on. I would think that you'd be, happy at getting I guess relatively stronger strength of schedule as of late, just in as far as the consistency, because I mean, you got to have the single fight across 2021 and 2022. So yeah, it seems like the landscape is a bit more cleared to be active, which I would think that you would derive a lot from. It's a bit over a couple months turnaround since the last fight. So, I mean, can you speak to that? I imagine you're excited at the rate of activity.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've always wanted to be active. It almost seems like, it was one fight a year for 3 years almost, right? And which was unfortunate, right? But that's just, the way of the beast, right? And, I think COVID had a little bit to do with that at the beginning, right? But now it's been good, and, not getting younger, so I might as well, jump on while I can, right?
Yeah, and a very compelling matchup for sure. This Bruno Santos fight was one that I found very intriguing when the announcement came, and I appreciate you making a bit of time to talk before the fight and everything, Jared. But kind of curious if maybe there's any final parting thought you might want to add as we're kind of wrapping up here, though, man.
No, just make sure it's going to be a huge weekend, in Vancouver for fights, both BFL 77 and UFC, right? So it's. I think it's going to be exciting, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a show.
Yeah, and I imagine it's probably sold out, but if anyone can finagle any tickets and they're in the Vancouver, BC area, definitely something they should make out of their schedule, map out a little spot to check out for sure. Like you said, a packed weekend in the area, but if they're not, they can check it out on UFC Fight Pass, which is always handy. But, thanks again for coming on the show, Jared. Always fun getting your insights ahead of these big fights, and just, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your night, and looking forward to peeping the fight when it goes down too.
Appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure.